20 items from the 1980s that failed. The 1980s promised us flying cars, wearable TVs, and dolls that sparked riots. But not everything lived up to the hype. Some ideas were visionary, others were just wild misfires. Curious which inventions crashed and burned? Let's dive into the boldest, weirdest, and most unforgettable product flops of the decade that dared to dream big and failed even bigger. Atari CX77 Touch Tablet. In the early 1980s, Atari was riding high. After reshaping home entertainment with hit after hit in the gaming world, the company set its sights on a new frontier: digital creativity. Enter the Atari CX77 Touch Tablet, a sleek, futuristic-looking device that promised to turn your TV or computer screen into a virtual canvas. For a moment, it looked like Atari might do for art what it had done for video games. The idea was impressive for its time. The CX77 was an early version of a graphic tablet, designed to let users draw directly on the screen using a stylus. It offered a hands-on, tactile approach to digital art that felt revolutionary in an era still dominated by joysticks and buttons. Aimed at hobbyists and kids, it came bundled with drawing software and was meant to inspire creativity, not just play. But the reality didn't live up to the hype. The tablet's accuracy was limited. You could only sketch out basic shapes and crude lines. The stylus was finicky, the controls weren't intuitive, and worst of all, there was no easy way to save or export your work. Whatever you created stayed locked inside the device, like digital sand drawings washed away the moment you powered off. While Atari hoped the CX77 would spark a new wave of creativity, consumers weren't impressed. Sales were weak, and the tablet quietly disappeared. Still, it was an early glimpse at a future that would one day be dominated by iPads and graphic tablets. The CX77 didn't win the race, but it helped start it. Briefcase Alarm. In the high-powered world of 1980s business, the briefcase wasn't just a fashion accessory, it was a vital tool. It carried contracts, cash, sensitive files, and sometimes even state secrets. So, naturally, keeping it safe was a top priority. That's where the Briefcase Alarm came into play. A dramatic invention that promised to stop thieves in their tracks, quite literally. The concept was straight out of a spy movie. If someone snatched your briefcase, you could trigger the built-in defense system by entering a secret code on a separate transmitter. What happened next was nothing short of theatrical. The briefcase would erupt in thick red smoke, blinding the thief and making it nearly impossible for them to make a clean escape. At the same time, an ear-shattering alarm would go off, drawing everyone's attention to the scene and turning heads on busy city streets. It was a bold idea, no doubt about it. A personal security system packed inside a sleek, professional-looking case. But as cool as it sounded, the Briefcase Alarm never became mainstream. The reasons were pretty obvious. People worried about triggering it by accident. Others didn't love the idea of their valuable papers being ruined by smoke. And let's be honest, most professionals didn't want to explain to coworkers why their bag suddenly exploded like a stunt prop. In the end, the Briefcase Alarm became one of those great on paper, not so great in practice inventions. Memorable, yes. Marketable, not so much. Italdesign Capsula. In the tech-forward rush of the 1980s, with the Transformers craze firing up imaginations everywhere, the idea of vehicles that could change form wasn't just fantasy. It started creeping into real-world innovation. That's where the Italdesign Capsula came in. This was no cartoon robot, but it was every bit as imaginative. Created by the renowned Italian design house Italdesign, the capsula wasn't built to impress with horsepower. It was meant to revolutionize how we thought about cars altogether. At its core, the capsula was all about versatility. Picture this: a single vehicle chassis, and on top of it, a modular body that could be swapped out depending on your needs. Need to haul cargo? Snap on a boxy van module. Want to take the family out for a stylish ride? Just switch to a sleeker passenger capsule. One platform, endless possibilities. It was the automotive version of changing clothes. practical, stylish, and futuristic. But despite all the buzz, the Capsula never went mainstream. The tech just wasn't ready. Swapping modules wasn't exactly easy or quick, and consumers weren't used to thinking about cars as customizable platforms. So the idea stalled. Still, the Italdesign Capsula was ahead of its time. And now, with today's electric platforms and modular thinking in full swing, its legacy might be more relevant than ever. Back then it was a dream, but maybe now it's a blueprint. Gullwing Doors. Gullwing Doors were once the ultimate symbol of the future. With their sleek, upward swing, they looked like something out of a sci-fi movie, and in fact, they were. The DeLorean DMC-12, made famous in Back to the Future, burned the image of those dramatic doors into pop culture forever. For a moment in the 1980s, it felt like every car in the future might have them. They looked bold, modern, and totally unlike anything else on the road. But the dream didn't quite take off. Fast forward to today, and most of us are still opening our car doors sideways. So, what happened to Gullwing Doors? Well, as stunning as they looked, they were loaded with real-world problems. First off, they posed a serious safety hazard. In a rollover crash, if the car landed on its roof, those doors could trap everyone inside. Because unlike traditional doors, you can't just push them open. They also didn't play nice in everyday situations. Tight parking spaces made them a headache, and their complex mechanics, like gas struts and specialized hinges, meant higher repair costs and more things that could go wrong. In the end, Gullwing Doors became more of a style statement than a practical solution. Cool? Absolutely. Common? Not even close. Premier cigarettes. In the late 1980s, as public awareness about the dangers of smoking grew louder, tobacco companies found themselves in a tight spot. The pressure was on to come up with a safer cigarette, a product that could satisfy smokers without all the harmful byproducts of burning tobacco. That's when R.J. Reynolds, one of the biggest names in the industry, rolled the dice with something truly radical: Premier cigarettes. Now, these weren't your average smokes. Instead of burning tobacco the old-fashioned way, Premier used a heated carbon tip to warm the tobacco and create vapor. This vapor then passed through a flavored capsule before being inhaled. The goal was simple: reduce harmful tar and smoke, while still giving smokers that familiar nicotine hit. R.J. Reynolds poured a jaw-dropping $300 million into developing this product, betting big on what they believed was the future of smoking. But when testers lit up, the dream went up in smoke. Most people were repulsed by the taste, describing it as somewhere between burning plastic and wet charcoal. It didn't light easily, the experience felt unnatural, and the smell? Let's just say it didn't win any fans. Premier never hit store shelves nationwide. It was pulled before full release, quietly shelved as a costly failure. Yet, in hindsight, it paved the way for today's vaping and heated tobacco devices. So while Premier itself flopped hard, it was an early, albeit clunky, step toward the smoking alternatives we see today. Which 80s product flop do you remember most? And did you ever own it? Vibrosaun. Back in the 1980s, there was a wave of innovation that tried to blend health, luxury, and science fiction into one. And nothing captured that better than the Vibrosaun. Created by Vibrosaun International, this odd-looking machine aimed to redefine how people relaxed at home. It wasn't just a sauna, it was a whole experience packed into a giant pod that looked like it came straight from the set of a futuristic movie. So, what exactly did it do? Well, the idea was to give you a full-body heat therapy session while keeping your head cool with a built-in fan. You'd lie back in a vibrating recliner as the pod surrounded your body in 170-degree dry heat. At the same time, the chair pulsed and massaged your muscles, promising relief from tension. And to make the experience even more luxurious, it included a stereo system so you could jam to your favorite cassette tapes while sweating it all out. But for all its bells and whistles, the Vibrosaun came with a staggering price: $5,995. And it wasn't exactly compact. It took up the same space as a phone booth, making it an awkward fit in most homes. Plus, let's face it, Most people didn't need an all-in-one relaxation capsule when a simple sauna or massage chair would do just fine. In the end, the Vibrosaun was a classic case of 1980s excess. Big, bold, and more about the wow factor than actual practicality. Speaker vest. Back in the 1980s, before Bluetooth was even a dream and wireless earbuds were science fiction, one product tried to bring music on the move to a whole new level. It was called the speaker vest, and it aimed to turn every motorcycle ride into a full-blown concert on wheels. This wasn't just a regular biker jacket, it was a wearable sound system. The design was pretty clever for the time. The vest came with built-in speakers embedded right into the fabric. Riders could connect their portable cassette players, yes, we're talking about Walkmans, directly into the vest. Once plugged in, their favorite tunes would blast out loud as they sped down the highway. It even featured zip-off sleeves for year-round flexibility, doubling as a full jacket in winter and a breezy vest in the summer. Style and tech all in one. But for all its boldness, the speaker vest had one fatal flaw. It didn't work all that well. At high speeds, the roar of the wind and the growl of the engine would overpower the speakers, making it nearly impossible to enjoy the music. Worse yet, because there were no headphones everyone nearby had to listen to, whether they liked your playlist or not. In the end, it was a flashy concept that never found real traction. Bikers today prefer sleeker, more efficient options like helmet speakers or Bluetooth earbuds. Still, for a short time in the 80s, the speaker vest let you ride with your soundtrack blasting and your sleeves flapping in the wind. Ulti Card. Back in the 1980s, long before we had smartphones or digital wallets, a company called Smart Card International tried to leap into the future with a bold invention, the Ulti Card. Dubbed the Everything Card, it was a high-tech marvel that aimed to replace your entire wallet with one sleek digital device. Unlike regular credit cards, the Ulti Card looked more like a pocket calculator. It came with a 2-line LCD screen and a 10-key alphanumeric keypad. It wasn't just for making purchases. This card could function as a credit card, a debit card, an ID, and even a key to unlock secure buildings. You could use it at payphones, parking meters, or any place that accepted digital payments, at least in theory. But that wasn't all. The Ulti Card packed in features that were wildly futuristic for its time. It could store your fingerprint for added security. It had space for your medical records, acting like a portable health file. It even claimed to help track your calorie intake, aiming to be part financial assistant, part health coach. So what went wrong? The technology simply wasn't there yet. The Ulti Card was too complex for everyday users and the infrastructure to support it didn't exist. Most businesses weren't equipped to accept it, and consumers weren't quite ready to trust a single device with so much personal information. In the end, the Ulti Card quietly vanished. But its vision? That lives on. Because today's smartphones now do everything the Ulti Card promised, and more. It wasn't a bad idea, it was just about 30 years too soon. Electric doormat. In the early 1980s, at a time when engineers were trying to bring automation into every corner of daily life, German inventors introduced a gadget that promised to revolutionize: wiping your feet. Enter the electric doormat, a quirky, motorized invention that set out to turn a simple gesture into a high-tech experience. This wasn't some novelty item you'd find at a gag store, it was the real deal, engineered with care and precision. The mat featured belts stretched over a set of counter-rotating drums, creating a gentle treadmill for your shoes. As soon as you stepped on it, the belts would automatically begin to roll, brushing dirt and grime right off your soles. It even had anti-tripping features to make it safe. You didn't have to wipe your feet, the mat did it for you. But for all its clever mechanics, the electric doormat had one big problem. It solved an issue that didn't really need solving. Regular doormats were already cheap, effective, and easy to use. No motors, no moving parts, no risk of breakdowns. In contrast, this fancy new mat was expensive, complicated, and high maintenance. People quickly realized they didn't need an electric treadmill to clean their shoes. Sometimes the simplest solutions really are the best. The electric doormat became a footnote in tech history, an example of innovation reaching just a little too far for something that wasn't broken to begin with. New Coke and Diet Pepsi, AM. In the 1980s, the cola wars were at their peak, and both Coca-Cola and Pepsi were scrambling to outdo each other. But sometimes in the race to innovate, even giants stumble. And few stumbles were louder or fizzier than New Coke and Diet Pepsi AM. Let's start with New Coke. In 1985, Coca-Cola made the shocking decision to change the recipe of its beloved soda, something no one had dared to do since its invention nearly a century earlier. The goal was to compete with Pepsi, which was scoring high in blind taste tests. But what looked like a bold move turned into a marketing disaster. Fans were outraged. People weren't just disappointed, they felt betrayed. Within months, Coca-Cola brought back the original formula under the name Coca-Cola Classic, and New Coke slowly faded away. Still, it lives on as a cautionary tale of what happens when you mess with a classic. And thanks to shows like Stranger Things, it even made a nostalgic comeback for a limited time. Then came Pepsi's turn to fumble. In 1989, they introduced Diet Pepsi AM, a soda made for breakfast, loaded with extra caffeine. The idea? Replace your morning coffee with cola. But the timing was off. Coffee drinkers stuck to their mugs, and soda fans didn't need a new morning ritual. Diet Pepsi AM vanished as quickly as it arrived, proving once again, if it ain't broke, don't fizz it. Thank you for watching. To continue with more content, comment yes to let us know you're still following. Dome homes. If you were flipping through home design magazines or driving through a few experimental neighborhoods in the 1980s, you might have spotted a strange sight. Round, space-age dwellings known as dome homes. These futuristic homes looked like they belonged in a sci-fi film or a Martian colony rather than a suburban cul-de-sac. But behind the odd appearance was a serious attempt to revolutionize the way we build and live. One of the biggest champions of this idea was Monterey Domes, a company out of Riverside, California. In 1981, they made bold claims that their dome-shaped homes were the most energy-efficient structures in the world. And they had the science to back it up. The curved design minimized heat loss by eliminating corners, the rigid foam insulation kept temperatures stable, and integrated solar heating systems helped cut down on utility bills. Plus, the construction required fewer materials, which meant lower costs overall. It sounded like the perfect solution to the energy crisis of the era. Affordable, eco-friendly, and durable. So why didn't they catch on? Simply put, people weren't ready to live in something that looked so alien. The average homebuyer wanted charm and tradition, not a giant golf ball parked on their lot. In the end, dome homes remained a niche curiosity. While a few experimental communities embraced them, most buyers stuck with good old rectangles and squares. The dome home was ahead of its time in purpose, but a little too ahead in style. Do-it-all system. In the ambitious world of 1980s tech, companies were already chasing a dream we now take for granted. One device that could do everything. That dream was packed into a little gadget called the Do-It-All system. It wasn't just a catchy name, it was a promise. This compact handheld aimed to combine all your daily essentials into one sleek unit. So what could it do? Quite a bit for its time. The Do-It-All system came with an AM/FM stereo so you could listen to your favorite radio stations. It had a micro cassette recorder and player, perfect for voice memos or capturing quick thoughts. On top of that, it had a fully functional calculator and even a digital clock with an alarm to keep you on schedule. For the average 1980s consumer, it sounded like the Swiss Army knife of personal tech. But while the idea was forward-thinking, the execution fell short. Switching between functions wasn't smooth, and the interface felt clunky. The microcassette format, once cutting edge, became obsolete almost overnight. And despite all the bells and whistles, most people weren't ready to give up their trusted single-purpose devices. Radios, calculators, and alarm clocks were reliable and cheap. In the end, the do-it-all system was a bold step in the right direction, just a little ahead of its time. Today, we carry devices in our pockets that do all that and more. But back then, this little gadget was a glimpse of a future that wasn't quite ready to happen. Private eye. Long before we had smart glasses, VR headsets, or wearable tech buzzing in our ears and eyes, there was a bold attempt in the 1980s to leap into the future. It was called the private eye, and it looked like something right out of a science fiction film. Developed by reflection technology, this curious gadget was one of the first head-mounted displays ever made. The idea was ambitious. The private eye used a tiny 1-inch red LED screen, but thanks to clever optical engineering, it appeared to the wearer as if they were looking at a full 12-inch monitor. Mounted over one eye, the device allowed for hands-free viewing, letting users read data, play early computer games, or even watch simple videos without needing a traditional monitor. It was marketed to tech enthusiasts and even caught the attention of some military and industrial sectors. But while the concept was exciting, the reality was hard to stomach. Literally. Many users reported nausea, headaches, or dizziness after just a few minutes of use. The eye strain from focusing on the strange flickering display was just too much. It was also expensive, and its applications were extremely limited. Outside of a few niche uses, the average consumer just didn't have much need or tolerance for it. In the end, the private eye never made it past tech novelty status. But it was a visionary step toward the wearable displays we take for granted today. A noble failure, perhaps, but one that helped pave the way for the future. Fisher-Price PXL 2000. By the late 1980s, camcorders had become a staple in American households. Families were documenting birthday parties, school plays, and vacations with bulky VHS recorders slung over their shoulders. But Fisher-Price had a different idea. In 1987, they launched the PXL 2000, a quirky little camcorder made not for parents, but for kids. This wasn't just a toy, it was a fully functioning video camera designed to be simple and fun. Instead of using VHS tapes, it recorded grainy black and white footage onto standard audio cassette tapes. The result? Pixelated lo-fi video that looked more like a glitchy dream than a home movie. But to a child holding their very own camcorder, it felt like magic. Compact, lightweight, and with a built-in mic, it was a gateway to storytelling. The problem? Price. At $180, the PXL 2000 cost more than most parents were willing to spend, especially when a brand new Nintendo cost about half that. While it captured imaginations, it didn't capture many sales. By 1988, Fisher-Price pulled the plug after selling fewer than 500,000 units. Kodak disc film. In 1982, Kodak, a titan of the photography world, tried to revolutionize the way we captured memories with the introduction of disc film. This wasn't just a tweak on existing technology. It was a complete reimagining of how film cameras could work. Gone were the bulky bodies and fiddly film rolls. In their place came sleek, compact cameras like the Kodak Disc 4000, designed to be as portable and easy to use as possible. At the heart of this system was a small, circular film disc, each one holding 15 tiny negatives. Loading the camera was a breeze. Just snap in the disc, close the hatch, and start shooting. No threading, no rewinding, no hassle. For everyday users, it felt like a breath of fresh air. The idea was to make photography more accessible, more modern, and more fun. But there was one fatal flaw. Those negatives were tiny. And with tiny negatives came low-quality images, grainy, blurry, and lacking in detail. While the convenience was there, the picture quality simply couldn't hold a candle to 35mm film. Serious photographers scoffed, and even casual users began noticing that their memories looked a little fuzzy. Kodak discontinued the cameras by 1988, though film production continued until 1999 for the few who stuck with the system. In the end, disc film became one of Kodak's most high-profile misfires, a clever concept dragged down by poor performance. Still, it paved the way for the compact, user-friendly cameras and eventually smartphones that dominate photography today. What's the biggest product failure you've ever personally experienced, 80s or not? Seiko TV Watch. In the early 1980s, personal tech was starting to explode. The Walkman had just made music portable, and companies were eager to push the boundaries of what else could be taken on the go. That's when Seiko stepped in with a device that felt like it came straight from a James Bond movie, the Seiko TV Watch. Released in 1982 and 1983, this futuristic gadget wasn't just a digital watch. It was also a tiny, wearable television. At first glance, it looked like any other high-tech timepiece, but hidden inside was a 1.2-inch LCD screen capable of displaying live TV. The idea was thrilling. Imagine catching the news or a sports game right from your wrist, anytime, anywhere. It even included an FM radio tuner, adding to its all-in-one appeal. But as cool as it sounded, the reality was a lot messier. To actually watch TV, you had to plug the watch into a separate, pocket-sized tuner. That tuner then had to be connected to headphones, creating a spaghetti mess of wires just to catch a fuzzy channel. So much for sleek portability. And with a price tag of $495 over $1,300 in today's money, it was a luxury few could justify. Cabbage Patch Dolls. Few toys have ever caused the kind of frenzy that Cabbage Patch Dolls did in the 1980s. These pudgy-faced, soft-bodied dolls weren't just popular, they sparked a full-blown cultural phenomenon. With their round cheeks, yarn-like hair, and the quirky charm of a doll that came with its own name and adoption papers, they felt more like little individuals than mass-produced toys. Kids were hooked. And parents? Well, they were willing to do just about anything to get one. At launch, no one expected the chaos that followed. As the holiday season approached, stores were flooded with eager parents desperate to find a doll for their child. But supply couldn't meet demand, and that's when the madness began. Across the country, department stores turned into war zones. People pushed, screamed, and even threw punches just to grab one of the few dolls on the shelves. Some stores had to call in police to manage the out-of-control crowds. It was one of the first and wildest toy crazes in modern retail history. But like most fads, the fire eventually cooled. By the late 1980s, the hysteria faded, and new toys took over the spotlight. Still, the Cabbage Patch doll craze left its mark. It showed just how powerful a toy could be, not just as a plaything, but as a cultural lightning rod. To this day, the Cabbage Patch riots remain one of the most unforgettable chapters in holiday shopping history. Ford Edsel. The name Edsel is practically shorthand for failure in the automotive world. When Ford first introduced the Edsel in the late 1950s, they expected a game-changing vehicle. Instead, they got one of the most expensive flops in car history. Poor design choices, confused marketing, and bad timing all contributed to its rapid downfall. So fast, in fact, that the model was discontinued just 3 years later. But oddly enough, the story didn't end there. In the early 1980s, Ford briefly flirted with the idea of resurrecting the Edsel brand. The goal? Reinvent it for a new generation. This time around, the focus would be on practicality rather than flash. Think compact, fuel-efficient, and smartly designed to appeal to cost-conscious drivers in the post-oil crisis era. Ford hoped that by modernizing the vehicle and distancing it from the bloated, overstyled image of the original, they could rewrite history. The only problem? The public hadn't forgotten. The Edsel name had become a cultural punchline, a cautionary tale rather than a brand with nostalgic charm. No matter how good the new model might have been, the stigma was too heavy to shake. Realizing this, Ford wisely pulled the plug before a single new Edsel rolled off the line. In the end, the attempted revival became a footnote rather than a comeback. Some brand names can rise again, but in the case of the Edsel, failure was just too firmly baked into its DNA. Apple Newton. Long before the iPhone changed everything, Apple had already set its sights on reshaping how we organize our lives. In 1993, after years of development, they launched the Apple Newton, a bold, futuristic device that aimed to put a personal assistant right in your pocket. Officially dubbed a Personal Digital Assistant, or PDA, the Newton was Apple's ambitious first step into mobile computing. On paper, the Newton sounded revolutionary. It promised to let users take notes by hand, manage their calendar, store contacts, and even translate handwritten notes into digital text. No keyboard required. For the early 90s, this was high-tech magic. It was a sleek, for the time, handheld device built to simplify daily life, and many believed it marked the beginning of a new digital era. But the reality didn't quite live up to the promise. The Newton was bulky, carried a hefty price tag, and most notoriously, its handwriting recognition software was deeply flawed. Instead of neatly turning your scribbles into legible text, it often produced laughable misinterpretations. The technology just wasn't ready, and frustration quickly replaced excitement. By the late 90s, Apple discontinued the Newton, quietly admitting defeat. But that wasn't the end of the story. The Newton laid the conceptual groundwork for future devices, and its DNA can be traced directly to the iPhone and iPad. It may have been a commercial failure, but the Newton was a pioneering spark that helped light the path to the mobile world we live in today. Which 80s flop surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, check out the rest of the series for more forgotten gems. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Pass Not Past with a fellow nostalgia lover. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.